deep in the heart of me, so deep in my heart that you're really a part of me.
We talked about celebrities, we talked about food, sex. There must be some stories about guests having sex. Nothing like that in the book?
They didn't charge them extra if they had it. No, they used to have singles weekends at Grossinger's.
Right.
And
I knew we'd get her there.
And you know, sometimes people, I would be asked by people, do singles weekends really swing? And first I would say, how do I know? Which was a lie. I knew. Secondly, because people were there, girls were there to meet guys. First of all, anybody who was there who was a guest knows the rooms were not exactly deluxe. Because they didn't want you to spend the time in the rooms. They wanted you to be out and about. So for single women looking for guys, they're not going to spend their time in bed with a guy. They could be in the terrace room giving out the numbers to other people. So there wasn't as much, but I was talking about how I made money from Buddy Hackett. When I was a kid, I used to be asked to babysit. And I remember once, the walls were very, very thin. I must have been 11 or 12. And I'm reading a comic book, whatever, great literature. And in the next room I hear all sorts of like, oh, Jesus Christ. And I thought, someone's getting hurt there. I mean, this isn't nice. And when it finally is over, and I hear the door, and I open my door to go out and to see, is everybody okay? And I knew the girl was a cashier, and I knew that the guy was a married guest, and I knew that he put his hand in his jacket and took out $2 and put it in my hand. And said, you didn't see me and I didn't see you.
Citizen's arrest.
And I kept looking on the director when he was coming up again. Of course, there were a lot of people there. Was there sex there? I presume so. As children, you know, I would have to tell you about putting the towels on the doorknobs. If a guy was entertaining in his room and the roommate would come, they would know not to do it. So there was a dorm, sort of dorm style building called the Brick Building, and Mary Ann and myself and our third partner in Mayhem named Pat Cridler, one of the Cridler families, would run up and down the halls and take the towels from one doorknob.
Pranks on the guests.
Ladies and gentlemen, there was sex.
All right, let's turn up the lights and see what questions you may have for Tanya.
There was one. There's a woman named Arlen Blake who corralled me and had a question to ask me. Arlen, can you?
Thank you. Sure. What did your family think about the book?
See if we can get the microphone back so everybody can hear this.
The question was, what did my family think about the book?
The book? Okay.
I could probably answer in 2 words: not much. When the book first came out, it came out as an article in the New York Times travel section titled "Growing Up at Grossinger's or Raised Without Reservations." By the end of the week, we had 8 book contracts, and finally it did come out this way. When the New York Times book came out, The Grossinger Family, which I was never close to, I mean, I should have said that at the very outset. Families run businesses, they don't always run families. And I think that this is not unique to people in various kinds of business. And in my particular family, it was not unique at all. The family, Paul Grossinger, who a number of people here have mentioned to me already this afternoon, and his sister Elaine, Jenny Grossinger's son and daughter, were very, very happy about the Times article because it was really quite, said wonderful things about them. They came in from the Catskills, they took me out, blah, blah, blah. Now we have a book. A book is more than a newspaper piece. And I had to make a decision. I could write a glorified press release, which would please them very much and give me access to their mailing list that consisted of 250,000 people. Or I could tell what I really knew, what went on behind the scenes with the famous people, with the family. I mean, I could have really done one of these confidential kind of books, which would have been an immediate success. But I wasn't ready to do that either. So I wrote a book, nice book, but I really didn't do either. After it was over, a very dear friend of mine who is a former friar, Art de Lugoff, said to me something that has stayed with me ever since. He said, I hope you learned one thing from this. Don't straddle the fence. Do one thing or do the other. But by straddling the fence, you're not giving yourself a compliment. So I no longer straddle fences, but I also didn't have a bestseller. When Skyhorse was kind enough to bring it out, we did very, very well, for which I'm very, very grateful.
Okay, another question?
I can't see.
Got one right here.
Go ahead.
Okay. Tanya, have you been back to Grossinger's since it closed? And if so, what was it like? What kind of experience was that?
It was bizarre. Grossinger's closed as Grossinger's, owned by the Grossinger family, in 1986. Subsequent to that, there were 4 incarnations. I think choice hotels, condos, but they didn't do their due diligence, and so there wasn't enough water pressure to service what they would have to build. Then another Bank of Japan and Lloyd's of London. That was the first time that I learned you never trust a bank because they didn't know what they were doing. And then a Korean-born Japanese gentleman bought the hotel. I went up to interview him and I asked him why, and he said, because I love golf and I'm very rich. It's probably the most honest answer to a question that Grossinger's ever given.
The golf course open.
At that point, the golf course is still in order, and I understand it's very, very well maintained. But I went up in 1997. I'm a travel writer, and so I thought this would be an interesting story. And actually, it was published in New Orleans, in Boston, Philadelphia, all over the country. It was the weirdest feeling. First, you look at the menu. Okay, a breakfast menu. Sashimi and sushi instead of smoked salmon. Miso soup instead of borscht. No bacon. Well, there never was bacon. But they had everything revolved around the pro shop. And I'm sitting at the bar interviewing Mr. Min, the owner, and I suddenly hear 3 choruses of Haba Nagila. And I'm looking around, what is going on here? And I see that they have a video of Elaine Grossinger at this Jenny and Harry Grossinger's daughter wedding. And I said, what? He said, I don't know. He said, people say they like it. Now, I think when he bought this hotel, he expected he would attract 2 different clientele. Upper middle class, Westchester, Bergen County, Japanese, and upper middle class, Jew. Okay, and it sort of worked because they all played golf. But the highlight of my evening, after going through weeds, I mean, depressing beyond belief, was going into what would have been the club room, but it was like a card room, and all the Japanese were playing pinochle and all the Jews were singing karaoke. And at that point, I knew it was time to go home.
Let's see who else might have a question.
Just a couple of quick comments. My great-grandfather bought a farm up there as well in the early 1900s, and I'm told that one of his sons, the family name is Appel, and they called them Red Apple, so one of them was instrumental in building the Red Apple Rest.
I have met the family of the Red Apple Rest a number of times. That story is unique to me, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
I can't swear to whether it's true or not. The people that bought Grossinger's in '86 was the general partner was Schwat, whose cousin was Red Buttons. I mean, it didn't have any connection, but it was the same family at that time.
It's interesting to note that there's a developer in Westchester who bought the Concord at auction for $16 million, and 2 weeks later bought Grossinger's at auction for $10 million. He bought part of Kutcher's, he's bought all the land, and he has pipe dreams of creating a Nirvana, blah, blah, blah. But now the same person who owns Concord owns Grossinger's. Maybe, is there somebody else here that has a question?
On the golf side, we go up there every year and play the course, and it's magnificent, as it always was.
That I've heard.
And the interesting thing is that the people that you see playing along with you, more than 50% speak a foreign language. They come to visit New York and they know that there's great golf at Grossinger's.
That's fascinating. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just since Latin music was an integral part of Grossinger's and the Catskills, which Latin musicians do you remember? And
The question was, since Latin music was such a part of Grossinger's history, Catskills history actually, what Latin musicians do I remember? I remember Machito, I remember Tito Puente, I remember Willie Bobo, I remember Charlie Palmieri. There wasn't, in fact there's a CD on Tito Puente at Grossinger's. I used to love the musicians, really loved them. And at one point, I learned how to play trumpet. And through my trumpet playing stages, I ended up at Brandeis forming a mambo band, an all-girl mambo band called Tania y sus Mamboleros. And we used to play at Fort Devens Army Camp, and when the soldiers heard that we were coming, they would yell, ship us out, ship us out. But Latin, I'm not sure what the connection, how it developed the connection between the Jewish people and Latin musicians, but people would come up to the Catskills, and then they would get together, all the guests at all the hotels at Roseland on one day and Palladium on another day, and that was sort of like summer camp get-togethers. How are we on time, Bill?
Well, let's take another 3-4 minutes. Two more questions, if we have them. All right.
What was the most challenging part of growing up in a hotel?
The question is, what was the most challenging part? Well, for me, growing up at Grossinger's, the most challenging part was to get myself to a point where I felt I was accepted as Tania Grossinger instead of Grossinger. When I went to Brandeis, and there was usually fall rush for all the guys to ask girls out, and I was 15 years old, so I mean, I would go out with anybody. And no one would talk to me, and then the week before Easter, all the hotshots on campus would take me out. And after the third date, now I remember it word for word. Oh, Tania, I can't believe the semester's almost over. We hardly had a chance to meet each other. You're so interesting, blah, blah, blah. Oh, maybe if you could get me a job at Grossinger's for the summer. So that took a little getting over. But I can honestly say I've come past that. Thank you for the question.
Okay, and our final question of the afternoon is really very interesting. It's history, it's funny, it's sociology, it's all blended into one. Going once, going twice? Question? No, that's it. That's it, thank you. Well, listen, Tania, thank you. This was really wonderful. It was great, we enjoyed it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Not to give in. And I said to myself, this affair, it never will go so well. But why should I try to resist when, baby, I know so well that I've got you under my skin.